Welcome to the Health Equity Fund's 2025 pre-proposal presentation. This presentation will prepare you to submit your 2025 major grant application. We acknowledge the land on which we are meeting, the ancestral lands of Duwamish, Muckleshoot, and Snoqualmie tribes, and recognize their continuing connection to land, water, and community. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the Coast Salish people who are still here today. We recognize the systemic oppression of Indigenous people, enslaved Africans, and other historically exploited people, which has led to the disproportionality in representation and disparities in health of these communities we serve. The mission of the Pacific Hospital Preservation and Development Authority is to support and provide funding for the provision of the best possible health care in the Puget Sound region in an effort to eliminate disparities in access to health resources and improve health outcomes. In this video, we will go over the important resources and dates, funding availability, application narrative and attachments, the grant submission, and contract obligations. Resources are available on the PHPDA website at phpda.org. During the application process, be sure to review the 2025 Major Grant Guidance, the Sample Grant Contract, the document on describing program performance and goals, and the frequently asked questions. The important dates for the application process are the deadline for guidance, the application due date, and award notifications. The grant period is July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026. Projects must take place within this 12-month timeframe, as the grant contract is for 1 year. Through a separate application process, grants may be renewed annually for up to 2 additional years based on program performance and funding availability, allowing for a total of up to 3 years of consecutive funding. Applicants can request funding between $50,000 and $200,000. The funding request in your application must be reasonably similar to the amount requested in your letter of intent. While you can adjust this amount, it should remain consistent with the original proposal. For example, if your LOI requested $100,000, increasing the request to $200,000 would be a significant change. Any adjustments should be reasonable and aligned with the scope of your proposed project. Now we'll go over some tips and guidelines for writing your application narrative. We encourage you to review the full application and all of the questions before our individual meetings. You may send questions ahead of time or prepare them for a discussion during the meeting. In these individual meetings, we will also share any specific comments or questions that the reviewers had after reading your letter of intent. It's important that your narrative is clear and cohesive. Tie the different questions together to create a comprehensive response. Clearly define and describe the disparity your program addresses and how your plan aims to alleviate it. Do not assume reviewers have background knowledge beyond what you provide. Avoid jargon and undefined terms. We ask that you use data where available to define disparities and set program goals. Additionally, be sure to address the following: why this specific population and service? Why is your agency best suited for this work? Why do you need funding from the Health Equity Fund? If your program addresses upstream root causes, ensure you clearly explain how those efforts connect to the health disparity and will influence ultimate outcomes. Defining outputs and outcomes. You'll describe your outputs and outcomes differently depending on whether your project is service delivery or advocacy. Outputs measure activities such as the number of counseling sessions, trained individuals, or advocacy coalition meetings. These are typically counts of actions taken. Outcomes measure impact, reflecting the changes resulting from those activities. If you are applying for a continuation or expansion project, be sure to include your current scope of work, number of clients, outputs, and outcomes. As stated in the grant guidance, any service delivery funded by PHPDA must take place in King County. Clients may reside outside of King County, but services must be provided within it. Advocacy efforts, which often extend beyond one county, should clearly demonstrate how they impact health disparities in King County. Additionally, PHPDA funds are restricted to health-related aspects of a project. For example, if your organization provides both medical services and recreational activities, PHPDA funds can only support the medical services. However, we have a broad definition of health-related services, including health outreach, education, nutrition, and exercise programs. If you propose any activity beyond direct health services, ensure it is clearly tied to a health outcome. The primary attachment for the application is the budget form. Detailed instructions are included in the first tab of the budget spreadsheet. You will only need to fill in the shaded cells. The rest are locked and contain formulas that calculate totals. If you require additional lines for direct expenses or subcontracts, email grants@phpda.org and we'll provide a modified spreadsheet. Your budget should include both the amount requested from PHPDA and funding from other sources. Regarding other funding sources, there is no specific expectation for how much PHPDA will fund versus what you secure from other sources. However, we need to understand how the funding fits together and the total cost of the program. We need to see the full program budget, even if PHPDA funds are not allocated to certain line items. Ensure that the budget narrative matches the figures in the budget form. The budget narrative should explain how you calculated each amount and why each expense is necessary for the project. In the personnel expenses section, enter base salaries as full-time, 1.0 FTE, even if a staff member will work part-time. FTEs should reflect the actual time worked within the grant period, so be sure to account time needed for hiring. For example, a 1.0 FTE position working only 9 months should be listed as 0.75 FTE. The base salary should always be entered as the full-time amount. This will then be adjusted based on the FTE column. For example, if you have a 0.75 FTE position with a full-time salary of $60,000, you would enter $60,000 for the base salary and 0.75 for the FTE, which would calculate to $45,000 in total salary. Fringe benefit rates must be entered for all personnel, even if only payroll taxes apply. Consultants should be listed under direct project costs, not the personnel section. The total personnel will automatically copy over into the direct expenses section. Here you'll enter the amount for every item funded by both PHPDA and other sources. There are some common expense lines already included in the form, but you can edit these and add others. Overhead and administrative costs should be included in the administrative expenses section. You can include admin expenses such as rent, utilities, accounting, data management, etc. You may itemize these costs or provide an indirect cost rate. The indirect rate is determined by the applying organization. PHPDA does not impose a cap on indirect rates. Be sure to explain how you determine the indirect in the budget narrative portion of the application. If using a federally negotiated rate, you may upload the approved letter. Any subcontract should be listed separately in the subcontract expenses section. This is meant for ongoing partnerships, not one-time consultants. If your organization uses a fiscal sponsor, the application and required attachments should come from the fiscal sponsor. The grant contract will be with the fiscal sponsor, not your organization. Submit both a statement of activities and a balance sheet for your most recent financial statements. Upload the most recent audit if available. If your organization does not conduct audits, submit board-approved final financial statements from your last fiscal year. Ensure financial statements are no more than a few months old. You will submit your application through the online grant system using the same login as your LOI submission. The draft application is located in the Action Needed column under the 2025 Major Grants section. Click the Document drop-down menu and select Application. We recommend drafting responses in a separate document before pasting them into the application. Each narrative question has a 10,000 character limit, including spaces and special characters. The system auto-saves every 100 characters, and you can manually save at any time. Click Submit when your application is complete. The system will notify you of any missing required fields. Applications must be submitted by 12 p.m. noon on the deadline day. No exceptions will be made. PHPDA are available to provide general guidance up until 1 week before the application deadline. If you have technology or submission issues, we will assist you up to the deadline. But please note that we will not review drafts of proposals. Submit all of your questions to grants@phpda.org. You must submit your grant application by 11:59 a.m. on Wednesday, March 26th. The online portal will close at exactly 12 p.m. noon. Applications cannot be submitted after the deadline and will not be considered. No exceptions will be made. Applications are reviewed by PHPDA staff, governing council members, and strategic advisors. Scoring values for each application narrative section are listed in the 2025 Major Grant Guidance. Those scores serve as the starting point for discussions in the review panel meeting. The final award decision and approval are made by the PHPDA Governing Council at their May meeting, with award notifications sent by May 17th. The PHPDA grant contract is standardized, so be sure to review it in advance. Awardees will receive drafts of contract exhibits based on the application. Final budgets and scope of work adjustments will be due in early June. Contract meetings will take place in June, and the grant period will start on July 1st. The PHPDA grant contract will include legal compliance requirements, restrictions on lobbying, credentialing for relevant positions, record keeping and audit requirements, and insurance and indemnification terms. The reporting requirements for a major grant will include the following: an annual site visit from PHPDA grant staff, quarterly progress reports tracking program outputs, successes, and challenges, biannual financial reports comparing actual expenses to budget, an annual demographic report, and final evaluation report on your program outcomes. We may also request additional stories or photos, but strive to minimize reporting burdens. Additionally, all major grantees participate in an annual convening in December, bringing together organizations from all 3 years of funding. At least one program representative must attend. Thank you for watching the 2025 Major Grant Pre-Proposal presentation. If you have questions after reviewing this recording, please bring them to your one-on-one meeting with PHPDA grant staff. We look forward to meeting with you, and good luck on your application.